everyone at the comic convention. It's 9:30, roughly 9:30 in the morning, and we just passed through the security gate, so everyone's coming in. It's officially started, and it is. So look behind us. We got Teen Titans right over here. So we're ready to go in now. Okay, so we're waiting outside to head into the Comic-Con, and I guess being early isn't really that of a good thing. A whole lot of people, us included, are waiting outside, so we'll let you know what happens when we get in. So we're still waiting to get in, and we've been waiting for the past couple of minutes. I believe the con is supposed to be open right now.
No, now you know the 15 minutes.
Wait, 15 minutes?
It's only 9:42. It opens at 10 o'clock.
Okay, so we'll have to wait outside with everyone for another half hour then.
They had like a heart attack. Yeah, and they like got his cell phone. Yeah.
We're ready to go into the con and we're waiting outside. It's not something to laugh at. Okay, but still, we'll get in eventually and we'll let you know what happens.
Alright people, we're still waiting to get in. When we got in here, it was just these bunch of people waiting online, but now it grew. Do you see? Alright, about 5 more minutes and we're gonna get in. Yay!
Okay, so we just got in a couple minutes after, and the first event that we're going to see is not till 10:45, so we're just going to look around and see what's up. Alright, let's look around and see some stuff. I'd rather we waste our money on more important things.
What?
Like comics or posters. Alright, so we got the official map to the kingdom, and now we know where to go to. Alright, let's open it and check it out. It's kind of just a magazine, but with a floor arrangement. Okay. So we were already talking about where to go. We have everything all planned out. Never go to a convention and just walk around because you waste time, you know?
Second tour of duty as X-Men group editor. I just couldn't get enough. And up on the stage here, we've got some great X-Men creators from the past and present. Starting down at the far end, he has drawn dozens of X-Men issues, many during Mutant Massacre of all the Mutants era. I know him as one of the nicest artists in comics. You know him as Rick Denardi. He's written Deadpool, he's written Cable, he's written Cable and Deadpool. He's written X-Force, he's written X-Men. I think he's written just about anything with an X in front of it, right? I know him as one of my best bosses I ever had, and a great mentor. You know him as Baby Reese. We wouldn't have Archangel, we wouldn't have Apocalypse the way he is now, not for this next artist. He had a long run on X Factor. I know him as my favorite artist in all comics. You know him as Walt Simonson. Longtime X-Men editor during the glory years of Claremont, Byrne, Cockrum, Paul Smith, and long memorable stints on both New Mutants and X Factor. I know her as the X-Men editor that I hope they could one day become. You know her as Louise Simonson. Next up, we have some guy. The list is endless. Emma Frost, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, Gambit, the Shi'ar, many, many, many others.
No list?
Did you want me to get out the list? Close to 200 uninterrupted issues of Uncanny X-Men, and that's not to mention all his work on Excalibur, New Mutants, Extreme X-Men, and many other titles. Chris Claremont. One-time Marvel Editor-in-Chief, responsible for Giant Size X-Men #1, co-creator of Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, and a guy named Wolverine. I know him as the guy who kinda gave me his blessing to kill Wolverine. Yes, on me. It's possible we made
With the name Wolverine. And so I did. I look, people ask, how did you create Wolverine? It's actually the easiest character I ever created. I went and I researched Wolverine. Which is what I always do. Any character I created. Discovered Wolverines were short, hairy, nasty little creatures with razor-sharp claws who would take on creatures 10 times their size and were absolutely fearless and had bad temperaments. I'm like, done. That's it. And I made him a mutant because there had been discussions about reviving the X-Men as an international human superhero. And I figured whoever got the book, if they wanted the Canadian, he was one they could use. And then the next year I found out I was the guy writing that book. So it made my life much easier. And when I discovered I was working with Dave Cockrum, who was a brilliant artist, Dave used to have notebooks full of character designs. And no characters could go with them in many cases. Just designs. And we sat down through his design books and sort of picked and chose. This is great. And we put together the X-Men Network. And he and I developed the characters from his original sketches. And that's pretty much it. It's as simple as that. Wake up.
1969, where I was working with Marvel as a gopher. They had invented the term intern. And
That's the man himself right
one
there.
of the first things that happened was that the first issue by Roy Thomas and Neil Adams came in as a make-ready, and then at the end of the week, the fourth issue came in as inks. And being the office cutsball, I had to sort it all out. And it was like, holy crumb cakes, this stuff is cool. And a few weeks later, Roy was at a point where he had to, they were trying to figure out, he and Neil were trying to figure out how to get rid of the Sentinels, who were decimating the X-Men at that time. And this didn't work and that didn't work, and how do you get rid of Sentinels? And being too dumb to know any better, I said, well, it's scientific fact that mutancy derives from radiation, which is solar radiation, i.e. the logical extension is they try to burn the sun. A lot of it means. Did I ask you? Sorry. And then he used it. I did the same thing with Lennon, by getting rid of
He tried to throw me into the sun. It didn't work out.
we split the difference. We got rid of Krakoa, who's evidently back as a member of the school.
Of course.
But that was it. I was hooked. And when Lennon took over the book, unfortunately, he couldn't lock his office door, and I was sitting right outside the office door. This is number 2, and I kept sneaking in to listen, and he was too polite to boot me out.
You learn your lessons the hard way.
And the rest, as they say, is history. And then I met her, the lady next to me, and became really good.
Wait, he skipped the whole part where he and John Byrne and Dave Cockrum did fabulous, incredible issues of X-Men that I was lucky enough to be able to edit or take over after Jim Salicrup left. So yeah, okay. So I was hired from Martin Publishing to edit Marvel's licensed properties and also to be eventually head of the X-Men, which I was very excited about.
The fill-in issue was really an issue he had already planned out, that's my understanding, as I remember it. So it was in continuity. So it was really just a crapshoot. I just got an issue that said, quick, draw this, we need it, tomorrow. So I drew an issue of the X-Men. It's the only issue I ever drew, 171. It's my most reprinted comic of anything I've ever done, because it was the issue where Rogue went from being a bad girl to being a good girl. And so I don't know how it is now, this is a long time later. At the time, Rogue was a popular character, but for a long time, that story had come around in the jukebox every so often.
And it has the best punch ever.
Well, it took some flack there. I believe comics are comics. I don't think comics should be just like, they're not like real life.
No.
So when she takes a punch, she gets blown to the moon, because that's what the honeymooners, Ralph Kramer, to the moon, Alice, to the moon! So she gets blown to the moon in one punch. I didn't know, or she didn't really get blown to the moon. That would, that would require a velocity of, that's comic. So apparently I'm really old, so I just give it up now. The second thing that happened to me was I was walking by the office, Chris, and we were discussing the X-Men Teen Titans. The way those books work was the Marvel and DC traded back and forth, the editorial job. DC did the first one, Superman, Spider-Man. Marvel did the second one, Superman, Spider-Man. DC did the third one, Batman and Hulk. Marvel got the fourth one, X-Men Teen Titans. And that meant that it was a Marvel editor, it was a Marvel creative team, Marvel letterer, Marvel colorist, but Marvel did the running on that. And Len, and was the liaison guy on that book. And Marvel pitched it as well. So I was walking by the office as they were discussing, and they were trying to find some good villain from DC to use in the book. And I heard things like, dark side. I'm drawing that book. I don't care. That's me. I think of my wife. I'm sorry, but I'm drawing that book. So I ended up drawing the book. Chris wrote a great story. We had a fabulous time. That worked out really well. And then finally, I was getting off. I was doing Thor. I guess I was working on Thor. About to get off it as the artist. I was still writing it. And Weezy had just gone on X Factor about 5 issues earlier as the writer, and she was looking for a pencil, and I said, I would love to work with this. So it was about that simple. I ended up being the pencil in X Factor for a while. That was it. The character needed a visual, and everybody thinks that I created it, not everybody, most people, it's on Wikipedia that way, so everybody believes it. But in actual fact, even the guy who created it thought that I had done it. That was Jackson Guys. Jackson Guy is a guy who drew Apocalypse for the very first time. It's a small drawing, and first when he shows up on the splash or cover, it's not what he eventually became. Jackson drew him once or thereabouts in a small panel at the end of an issue. He forgot he'd done that. I took his drawing and I gave the guy steroids. Don't do this to him. But I juiced him up a lot because I'm an old groupie guy. So he came to look a lot like I drew him because I'm the one that kind of made him larger. But I love the idea that everybody thinks that I did it, and in fact, even the guy who created it did it. That's my favorite X-Men.
Mine wasn't even, I wish it had come out of my brain, but it didn't. I think it was the second X-Men summit we were doing after we had taken over the books, and at that point you had to do a gigantic crossover every 15 minutes. So we'd done one 15 minutes earlier, so we had to do another one. And we were talking about what we were going to do with Magneto and things like that, and that was when Peter David blurted out, mostly out of frustration in this meeting. Why doesn't he just finally rip his skeleton out of Wolverine's body? And all of us just looked at each other, and we said, everyone was thinking the same thing, except Peter was the one who said it, because Peter shouted, I was just kidding. So we went ahead, and we ripped out Wolverine's skeleton, and it turned out to be something like 5-6 years worth of stories that were running through the different X-Books.
All right, I think my favorite moment, or series of moments actually, was probably maybe the moment that was responsible for this giant crossover mania that a lot of comics seem to have right now. It's Chris's fault. I want you to know who's got to blame. Chris comes to my office. I was writing at the time, so it wasn't my office. We're just talking. And Chris said, I'm going to kill the Morlocks. There are too many Morlocks. Paul's going to put in, how many Morlocks did you put in? Oh, 300 or something. And you wanted fewer than that.
far as the eye can see, and I was sort of surprised because I figured there were only like supposed to be 25 of them. That's why they were hiding so deep and being so sneaky.
Right. So Chris says, he says to me, so I'm going to kill him. I'm going to create this batch of evil villains who are going to kill all the extra warlocks. And I said, ooh, what fun. I said, can I play? I want to. You were going to do it in a single issue.
Right.
And I said, no. Please let me help. Because I like to kill warlocks too. So I said, look, okay. So we decided we would do it, as a kind of a crossover. We were going to call it the Merry Marvel Marching Mutant Massacre. Only Marvel thought that was a bad taste and wouldn't let us do it. We made a map. I mean, Walter played it eventually.
Comic books. How can you have bad taste in comics?
And Walter was really good at drawing maps, so he drew this. And then suddenly Thor wandered in.
Thor wandered in.
Between us, between Chris Weezy and me, we were doing X-Men, X-Factor, New Mutants, Power Pack, and Thor. So we were writing or drawing all those different books. So this whole creative crossover, it became a crossover of all those books. And because it was really just the three of us, we were able to work out, I think it's a pretty good continuity. We tried to work it so you could read just the X-Men and have it make sense, or just the Mutants, or just Thor, or just Power Pack.
Right.
And have them all make sense, but all to get X-Factor, but have them all together to make one big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew a map, like kind of a plumber's map, with all the, I don't know why that was connecting all the things. We put all the issues in squares in order on the map, connected them all up to show how they all fit together. Did a bunch of drawings of all the characters along the bottom. They printed it in two colors, black and red. It was distributed to comic shops for free. I'm sure it's for $1 billion now. Maybe not. But but it really explained how the whole thing worked, and that ended in the Mutant Massacre.
Well,
it also happened in September. Remember, you couldn't sell comics in September.
yeah.
So, and I thought that was really stupid. So I said, of course you can't, if it's the right comic. So we did this crossover.
And it sold.
And it sold gangbusters. So remember the next year, Shooter comes to us and he says, you're doing another crossover. And he said, this is what you're going to do. And he started telling us. And we said, oh, no, we already have something planned. We didn't have anything planned. That came, was it Mutant Massacre? No, that was the next one. What's the next one?
No, Mutant Massacre was
What was the next one? Follow the Mutant. That became Follow the Mutants. And, a couple of people died. I've been in trouble for that ever since.
Follow the Mutants.
Yes, they did eventually. And then after that, we had been working toward Inferno all along. And that
Inferno was supposed to be the funny.
that was, so that was, that whole experience of collaboration, I think, was my favorite X-Men moments. And it dragged out over back 4 years.
Well, the whole thing is, the nice thing about, coming from the old days is that the rule at Marvel used to be, you get on, you tell your story, you get the hell off. You don't run more than 3 issues, because if you run more than 3 issues and it's a dud, you're stuck with it.
These days they drag issues on. Back then they just
intense. You leave your
got to the
audience
story and that was it.
going, oh, that was fun. What the hell happens next? We want, that we leave everybody desperate for more. But don't ever overstay your welcome, because the last thing you want is the readers to think, oh, God, another issue, and move on to something else. So we try to find ways to pare everything down to the bare essentials, and most importantly, catch everyone by surprise and make sure that something essential happened in each separate arc.
Chris is genius at that, by the way. Just saying.
Well, just so that you have to read New Mutants because of what happens in New Mutants. You have to read Thor because of what happens in Thor. You have to read Power Pack because that's the key to the whole thing. X-Men will happen. But that's, you want it to be organic. And it's always, for me anyway, I always find it says when you get 2 or 3 simpatico lines, you go out and you have a coffee clutch, and you just toss ideas back and forth until you find something that, hey, that sounds cool. Yeah, and if we did this, you know.
All right, we just got out of the Marvel 75th anniversary panel with X-Men
Writers and artists. A few of them were there, like you saw in the video that I recorded.
What did you think about it?
It was nice to see them in person. It's the first time I've ever seen any of them in person because those were the people that created the X-Men. Everything that we saw in the movies is based on their work. So it was a lot to be in the same room with them.
All right, there were like audience, you know, you get to ask questions. We didn't get to because time was up. What did you want to ask them?
I would have asked Chris Claremont sort of the same question that I mentioned in the narration, the dangling plots, unsolved storylines, the unresolved things video. What would the uncanny universe would have been like if Claremont would have been able to finish his stories? Dark Wolverine, the Shadow King, and Professor Xavier, the final battle between them. What would the Marvel universe be like if he was allowed to finish it? Because, like I mentioned in that narration, theoretically, everything would have been far different than what it is now. And I would have loved to hear what he had to say about that. But I guess that'll be something people will speculate on the internet for the rest of Marvel's history to come, you know?
there is sort of this like spiritual, I would say spiritual undercurrent to it. That's something that some people are kind of reluctant to talk about, reluctant to share. Was there any hesitation about putting that out there, that you do have this belief? And because your father, you said, was agnostic, perhaps atheist, right?
He might have been an atheist. We never really talked about that, but he was for sure an agnostic. He had no use for organized religion, and nor do I. I have a pretty pronounced relationship with this all-seeing, all-being, powerful entity, which, for lack of a better word, we'll call God, who I speak to 10 or 12 times a day. And I will never admit in public that he speaks to me.
I think you just did.
I never do that. And so it's kind of a paradox. I come from a dad who infused a lot of really amazing things in me, and I took away all of them. And then with him passing when I was very young, that was the event that caused these kind of exchanges that were outside of the realm of the natural and sort of into the realm of the supernatural. And that's when this relationship began. But the spirituality is very much a part of how you comport yourself as a human being. You know, I mean, love thy neighbor. You know, the golden rules. You know, they're golden and they're rules, and so that's why they call them that. Friends, because now I'm at the age where you kind of lose them one a month. You know, and you hit 64 years old. You know, you start going to a whole lot more funerals. You guys should probably be in that room. That sounds way more entertaining than this shit. I want to talk about funerals, right?
Hey, it's in the book. So you made it. So I don't know. What are some of like the biggest lessons that? Let's talk about loyalty. I mean, there's this thread of loyalty. Are you a loyal guy?
I would say so. I would say that the shit I learned coming up on the streets of this town were way more powerful than anything I learned in any school I went to or anything like that. Starting with my dad and what he tried to infuse in me. And a lot of it was shown to me by, he was a movie buff. And so, I was watching how John Wayne, would kind of walk through a situation, or Humphrey Bogart, or Jimmy Cagney, or those dudes, or Burt Lancaster. And that's where I kind of learned the code of what a real man, how a real man is supposed to behave, and what he's supposed to do with regard to his friends. You never rat out a friend, And I learned a lot of my values right here, growing up on these streets, under his watchful eye. Talk a lot in the book about hypocrisy, about in Hollywood how everybody says, "Hey, bro, I got your back," and then as soon as the shit hits the fan, they're like, "You turn around and go, there's nothing in my back." So it drives me nuts.
So we just got out of the Archie booth right now, and Ying was looking forward to seeing that a lot. They had a lot of Archie stuff. Archie is dead.
Yes, they killed Archie, but he's not totally dead. It's not like the end of Archie comics.
From what I was told, it's like the DC or Marvel version, alternate realities and that sort of thing. And that was a lot. It was good though to see Archie. I know a lot about Archie, but anything recent I'm not really that familiar with, so it was nice to hear something up to date. So we're gonna walk around because we're gonna see something a little bit later on, but right now we'll just wander around. Maybe we'll go into a pavilion if we find one that's open. Which one do you think is the best one?
I like Ryu.
Ryu? So it's the end of day one, and Ying and I are both home. We would have talked a little bit after the Rotten Tomatoes, but it was a long day and we just decided to head home. We also forgot to talk about Ron Perlman's Spotlight in the heat of the moment. And Ying, what do you thought about it?
Oh, he's very funny. Very blunt too, so.
It's nice to hear something like that every so often. And what do you think of the Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, that was the most fun. Funnest. I can't even talk right now. I'm so tired. The panel
I
was
know.
so much fun out of the whole day, because they were comparing critics' reviews versus the fans' reviews. It was actually fun. You can talk more. I can talk.
I know, it's been a long day, so... And by the way, there's actually one more thing that I wanted to tell the viewers. When we were leaving, Ying and I, we couldn't actually tap out with the pass that we had, because apparently when we went to the customer service desk, they said that the people actually left. So we actually left the con without signing out. So tomorrow we're going to have to go back to the con and actually go to the area where you're supposed to tap out, and then we have to go all the way around to the other side of the convention to tap in for the day. So I hope everything will go well. Ying was saying that it would go well, so here's to hoping that everything will go smoothly tomorrow.